With the new Civil War movie coming out, everyone's talking about whether or not Americans are once again going to take up arms against each other. So, I had to come to the location of one of the most important and paramount battles of the American Civil War, Vicksburg, Mississippi. What do you think is the most important lesson that people should learn about the Civil War?
It was about slavery.
I've come to Vicksburg, Mississippi to ask the people a very simple question. Are we fucked?
Hold on, listen, it's a whole pun. Deer nuts, sack brand, 99 cents, just under $1. I got this from Mammoth Cave,
nice.
National Park in Kentucky.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest threat to democracy or the United States is?
Ourselves.
Yeah.
Ignorance. Ignorance to the Constitution, ignorance to our rights, ignorance to anything that we have the obligation to do, say, be.
Our current politicians. The government was designed to where it was supposed to be servants of the people, not
right.
people serving the government.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting to the point where through political self-interest, it's getting to people serving the government, not the government serving the people. It's not totalitarian yet. We're still one of the best, if not the best country on the planet, but it is getting worse, steadily and progressively.
What's your name?
Charles Pendleton.
And you're the owner of the Civil War Museum?
Yeah, Vicksburg Civil War Museum.
And one of the first things I noticed is the rules right when they come in. Why do you have that?
That's my mission statement, and it kind of sets the stage for all of the foolishness. So many people got different opinions about the Civil War. Some of them are correct, some of them are incorrect. So I kind of set the tone from the start. Your correct or incorrect understanding has no bearing in here. This is history. You may not like some of what you hear in here, but it's going to be factual. And so I'm just kind of laying that out there, to cut out all the debate and foolish conversation.
What do you think the biggest threat to the United States or democracy currently is?
I think the lack of understanding of democracy and the lack of appreciation for it. I think there's institutions that we have set up, and you can have bad people in those institutions, but the institutions are still good. For example, the Supreme Court, that's a great institution. Maybe some of the Supreme Court justices are bad, but the institution is not bad. And I think the dismantling or the undermining of those institutions is what would undermine the society as a whole.
What do you think the best way to deal with that threat is?
You've got to have people that's willing to stand up and say, no, this is the way it is. And I guess to give you an example, the election of 1860, when Abraham Lincoln was elected, the southern states wanted to secede from the Union. And the Confederate Vice President, Alexander Stephens, argued against secession. And he said, this one man was elected legally. That's our process. No state in good conscience should leave the Union because a single person was elected legally. And so even though he eventually became the Confederate Vice President, I think he saw the strength in the systems that we had set up, and we wouldn't have had a Civil War if the southern states would have stayed in the Union and followed the systems that they did for, all the years before.
What do you think the biggest threat to democracy or the United States is?
I think people coming away from God, and just like any religious core, I think people have gotten so far away from just having a moral compass. That's why it's so bad. No, people don't have empathy for their fellow man anymore. It's we are literally, I read in a book, money is God's biggest competitor. And I feel like we are all in a rat race to acquire the same resources and money, and it's taking us further and further away from God or whoever you desire to call your creator, and our family, which is like should be at the center of all people's American dream, to provide their family and the people that come after them with a better life.
What do you think the best way to deal with that threat is?
Everybody need to go back to church or mosque or whatever religious faith. I think if we can all learn to coexist and treat our fellow brother or sister better, be empathetic towards one another, be fair and helpful if you can be.
What do you think the biggest threat to the United States or democracy is?
The biggest threat to our democracy is division amongst one another. Division amongst races, religions, sexual preference, anything of that nature.
What do you think the best way to deal with that division is?
Hear one another out. You can't necessarily accomplish anything without the first initial conversation. So conversations are very important to understand, how we make each other feel.
Do you think that the United States is headed towards a conflict like the Civil War?
Yeah, either within ourselves or with another super country. Just for example, I can't remember, and it might be your home state that took Trump off the ballot. They did that.
I think it was Colorado.
They did that to Abraham Lincoln. The South did that to Abraham Lincoln, and that's one of the whole baselines for the Civil War.
Do you think that there's going to be another Civil War?
It wouldn't surprise me either way. We could work out our differences. We could wind up shooting at each other again.
Do you think that another conflict like the Civil War in the United States is going to happen or possibly going to happen?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I think we're making the same mistake the Founding Fathers made with slavery. They never solved the issue. They just continuously kicked it down the road, and there's a lot of issues in America that we don't solve. We kind of push them down the road, and eventually they get to the point where you can't push anymore, and that's leads to a physical conflict.
It's possible, given the state of our society. It's definitely possible, but I think everyone in America, or the majority of people in America, like-minded people, don't want that. I mean, nothing good can come from war, realistically. So,
do you think that there's a way to find common ground between opposing political sides?
Absolutely. Yeah. The common ground should be the country itself, our land, our people as a whole, as a unit. It shouldn't matter this law or that law or who. It really shouldn't matter, because their duty as service people of the country, they're in service. They're public servants. Anybody even the president's a public servant. It's their job to take care of this and make sure that it's not awful, but not, like it is.
Do you think that there's possibility of people finding common ground before things get to that level?
There is a possibility. Will it happen? I don't think so, no.
And why do you not think so?
It's not profitable to be at peace. The people that cause the conflicts, they don't want to be a part of the conflict. They don't. I just don't think they look at their actions and what their actions do. They just look at their action as being a means of getting what they want, whether it's financial gain or political power or whatever. They get what they want by causing conflict.
For the most part, there are always exceptions. There are exceptions to every rule. But for the most part, most people, regardless of what they claim their affiliation to be that I have talked to, agree with me. If it doesn't affect them, they don't care.
Yeah.
Period. This country was built on compromise. You find the middle ground that nobody's happy with, but everybody can live with, and stick to it.
Do you think it's possible for opposing political sides to find common ground?
Absolutely. I think we do a great job in some situations of finding that common ground. I think that social media and other forms of media don't allow us to see how often we can find that common ground and coexist amongst one another. So, like I said, if you look for positivity, you're going to find positivity.
Final words, last thoughts?
Nothing that I can think of. Semper Fi. That's all I say.
Oh, any final words, last thoughts?
Just don't hate people. People are allowed to have different opinions. You are allowed to debate. Don't be mean about it. Present your points. If you disagree with the person, okay. If they want to present their points to you, let them. And if you can't come to an agreement in the end, agree to disagree and part ways, not necessarily as friends, but not hating each other.
Great. Well, any final words, last thoughts?
Oh man, thank you for letting me do this.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Any final words, last thoughts?
If everybody just go back to church or mosque or wherever your place of holiness is, I think we all could. Or just crack open your Bible. That's mostly what I do. Or read a devotional. Just treat people, like try and help somebody each day. Even if it's just like being graceful. Like, all right, you was late, but I'm going to let you make it this time.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
Any final words, last thoughts?
Civil War was about slavery.